What's up, YouTube? Zero here, and today I have an absolutely epic Mega Sableye and Greninja deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually, and I'll talk about why they work so well together, why this deck is epic, and you should be checking it out. Before I get into it, I do want to say, as always, if you do enjoy this video, definitely hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any different deck build videos. I do unique decks, I do meta decks in Pokemon TCG Pocket, and I'll also do some different types of videos in Pokemon TCG Pocket. But without further ado, let's talk about this deck. I'm going to talk about Mega Sableye first, but of course, Greninja is also a star in this deck. But let's talk about Mega Sableye. If you watched my video that I released yesterday, you'll already know what Mega Sableye does. Just released in those new packs, Everyday Wonders, that dropped a few days ago. Mega Sableye has 1 attack for 2 energy, 1 dark, is Curse Jewel. It hits for 80 damage. However, during your opponent's next turn, if Sableye is damaged by an attack, it does 40 damage to the attacking Pokemon. So you have a counter attack damage of 40, which is really cool. Of course, it does leave Sableye open to your opponent avoiding that damage in one way, shape, or form. If your opponent utilizes a Sabrina or a Cyrus and gets Mega Sableye out of that active spot, they could also choose not to attack and not take that 40 damage. But I'm sure you're not going to complain too much because you're not taking damage if your opponent does not attack while you're hitting for 80. So that 40 counterattack damage is pretty nice and could deter your opponent from attacking. You're going to do 40 damage. Your opponent may try and utilize a supporter card earlier than he or she may want because they don't want to take that 40 damage. But it's really cool because you can do a combined 120 damage if your opponent does attack you, as long as your Mega Sableye stays in that active spot. So a really cool card. It is only 2 energy for 120 damage, or potentially 120 damage, which is really nice. I do really love Mega Sableye. I love Sableye as a Pokemon in general, but that is a really cool attack. Now I'm combining Mega Sableye with Greninja in this deck, and let's be honest, if you've been playing the game for a little while, you already know about Greninja, you already know how good Greninja is, and you already know Greninja is insanely versatile and can be combined in a lot of decks to make that deck even better. But let's talk about Greninja. Greninja does have an attack that's not going to be utilized in this deck. I am only running dark type energy, and for good reason. I want to attack with Mega Sableye. I want to hit for 80, and I want that counterattack damage for potentially another 40. Greninja's ability is what makes it versatile, is what makes this Pokemon absolutely amazing. So Greninja's ability is Water Shuriken. Once during your turn, you may do 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. That's really cool because you can choose the Pokemon that you do 20 damage to. This provides a lot in terms of this deck and really any deck in general, which is why Greninja is so versatile and used with a lot of other Pokemon in a lot of other decks, a lot of different combinations with Greninja. So let's break it down. 1, Water Shuriken is doing 20 damage. So you could potentially add 20 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So now Mega Sableye is hitting for 80, Greninja is hitting for that extra 20. So you do 100 on your turn, and then if your opponent attacks, you're counter-attacking for another 40. So now you're up to 140. However, as long as your opponent doesn't have a Pokemon tool, such as a protective poncho that will prevent damage to a Pokemon on the bench, you could potentially choose a bench Pokemon that you can damage. What's really nice about this is you can strategize with Greninja. That's what makes Greninja and its ability Water Shuriken so deadly, is that you can strategize what Pokemon on your opponent's bench you want to hit. You can see currently my opponent has a Pokemon on the bench that only has 30 HP. Perhaps I want to attack that and I'm going to defeat it in 2 turns as long as it doesn't evolve. It could be great for taking out baby Pokemon on my opponent's bench. 2 turns and I have a point already thanks to Greninja and Water Shuriken because I can choose what Pokemon to attack. So that's really cool. I can also utilize Greninja in combination with Cyrus. And that's part of the reason why I don't have a Sabrina in this deck. I rather utilize double Cyrus. That's because Greninja can really be used to strategize what Pokemon am I going to hit, and can I utilize Cyrus, if I have a Cyrus in my hand, can I utilize Cyrus to bring that Pokemon to the active spot? Whether it's a Pokemon I want to damage with Mega Sableye, or it's a Pokemon that has a high retreat cost that I want to force into that active spot. Or perhaps it's a Pokemon that has some energy on it, but maybe not full energy to attack, and I want to force my opponent into retreating and wasting energy to retreat that Pokemon. Greninja can be utilized, the Water Shuriken can be utilized for a lot of different reasons, but it's a really great card in a lot of different decks because of that strategy involved. You're forcing your opponent to do something that he or she does not want to do by utilizing that 20 damage throughout the playing field, depending upon how the battle is going. Whether it's an extra 20 damage to the active Pokemon, or whether it's 20 damage to the bench, so you can utilize Cyrus or take out a Pokemon that doesn't have a lot of health. Greninja is an absolutely epic card. But now you can see in this deck, I also have 1 Rocky Helmet. So now that can increase damage to my opponent's active Pokemon even more. So if I have Mega Sableye in that active spot, I hit with Greninja for 20, I hit with Mega Sableye for 80, that's 100, my opponent attacks me back. Now I'm 40 on the counter attack and 20 on the Rocky Helm, so I can hit for 160 damage between my turn and my opponent's turn. So that's really awesome. That's why I do have 1 Rocky Helmet in this deck. You could potentially, if you really want, maybe substitute out one of the copycats for another Rocky Helm. I do have 2 copycats in this deck. Sometimes I found just pulling an extra copycat could really be useful, especially if your opponent is drawing a lot of cards or you're not getting the cards you want. It's really important to get Mega Sableye out onto the field to equip energy onto it and Greninja onto the field so you can start hitting with Water Shuriken. That's really how this deck is going to be dealing damage and winning battles. But that's why I have 2 copycats, of course. Next, I do have a couple of Chinglings in this deck to slow down my opponent. Chingling is still a very good Pokemon with jingly noise. It's a baby Pokemon, so it does not require any energy. It hits for 10 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand. So what's really nice about that is you're stopping a lot of different cards. You can stop a rare candy, you can stop a Pokeball, which are 2 very prominent cards. You can stop an X-Speed. So remember, Greninja can hit a Pokemon on the bench, and then you can Cyrus that Pokemon to the active spot. If you're utilizing Chingling, now your opponent can't use an X-Speed to lower the retreat cost. It's possible that your opponent has a Leaf, which lessens the retreat cost by 2. It is a supporter card, but a lot of decks aren't running Leaf right now. They're utilizing X-Speed. So your Chingling is going to stop X-Speed. Almost every deck has a Pokeball, so you're going to stop Pokeball. And of course, a lot of decks, even my deck, has rare candies, so you're going to stop rare candies. Chingling is still a very useful card to prevent your opponent from utilizing item cards. I absolutely love it. It is still a very good Pokemon, a very good baby Pokemon to stop your opponent from utilizing those item cards and slowing your opponent down a little bit. So Chingling is still great and still great for this deck. And of course, I do have 2 Froakies. Both are the ones that have flop for 10 damage, but that's for 1 colorless energy. So if Froakie is in the active spot, you can equip a dark energy and at least attack for 10, doing a little bit of damage. I already talked about Cyrus, but it is a phenomenal card to combine with Greninja. Cyrus being able to take a Pokemon that has damage on it from your opponent's bench and put it into the active spot. It is an insanely great card, great for every deck. I have it in almost every deck I run just because of how good it is. Copycat, you get to not discard, but shuffle your hand back into your deck and then draw a card for every card in your opponent's hand. So if your opponent has more cards than you, this can be great to pull extra cards. If you have a hand that you don't like, this is a great way to hopefully get some cards in your hand that you do need. And last but not least in this deck, I do have 1 Pokemon Center Lady. The Milotic that just came out, the Melodic, puts Pokemon to sleep. It's another way that those who utilize a sleep deck, the Darkrai combination, can put opponents to sleep and deal extra damage. Of course, the developers went there. Why not throw another Pokemon that induces sleep into the game so people can add to the Igglybuff Darkrai, and now it's Milotic in those decks. Pokemon Center Lady is getting even stronger. So Pokemon Center Lady is going to be very important going forward just to get rid of a sleep. Of course, sleep can win or lose opponents' games. If you're unlucky and you flip for a bunch of tails multiple times in a row, you're going to lose. It just is what it is. That's why I have Pokemon Center Lady to heal up 30 HP and also get rid of that sleep. I'm going to go forward right now, because of all these sleep decks, run at least 1 Pokemon Center Lady in the majority of my decks. It's just really crucial with sleep decks and Pokemon that utilize sleep, because just based off of this new pack, there's nothing that's really going to get rid of the sleep meta. It's still going to be a very good strategy. Even though it is a little bit of a lucky strategy, it's still a very good strategy. Of course, Milotic deals 80 damage, puts the active Pokemon asleep. If you have 2 Darkrai's on the bench, that 80 now becomes 120. And if I, or the opponent, if I'm using a sleep deck, is able to flip for a Tails, that's an extra 40, so that damage can just compound and be a ton of damage and really turn the tide of battle. So having a 1 Pokemon Center Lady, if not 2, in your deck is going to be crucial going forward. I absolutely recommend it regardless of the deck you're running at this point. It's going to be insanely important going forward. So I do have 1 in this deck. You're going to need it. Just, it's frustrating to flip for a lot of tails in this sleep meta. Your opponent beating you because you just flipped for a bunch of tails. So don't let that happen. Have your Pokemon Center Lady ready to go. But outside of that, this is the deck, and I absolutely love it. It's a really fun combination. Greninja makes a lot of cards better. Honestly, I do think Mega Sableye is a really good Pokemon, a really good card in this game right now. I believe just based off of what I've seen, it's way to attack, it's way to do extra damage. It's a really good card. Is it one of the best? Maybe not. There's still other cards that I'd prefer over it. I still prefer Mega Lucario. Mega Altaria is another one that I really like. But this is a really good card and can do some really good things in the right deck. And this is one of them. Combining it with Greninja has the opportunity of dealing a lot of quick damage. You can hit Pokemon on the bench. You can bring those Pokemon from the bench to the active spot and hit them with your Greninja. And of course, you're gonna make your opponent fearful to attack your Mega Sableye. Mega Sableye is the prize. If it goes down, you automatically lose the game. So your opponent is going to want to attack Mega Sableye. However, once you're getting that counterattack ready, once you hit for 80 and you're going to counterattack for 40, your opponent isn't going to want to hit you. It's going to want to take the one prize cards instead. It's going to want to take the Chingling. It's going to want to take the Greninja. And that's going to allow you to deal the 80. And then eventually your opponent is going to have to try and take out your Greninja. Meanwhile, you're hitting for that extra 40 on the counter attack. So it's a really great card. It really forces your opponent to strategize and try and force them not to hit that Mega. In every other battle, your opponent is going to want to hit that Mega Pokemon. In this battle, if your Mega Sableye already attacked, your opponent isn't going to want to hit this Mega Pokemon because it's going to be getting slapped in the face for an extra 40, and a lot of opponents are not going to want that. So it's an absolutely great card. It's going to be in a lot of good decks going forward, and I have a couple more in mind. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss the next couple of Mega Sableye decks I have on the docket ready to go. Let me know in the comments section what you think of this deck. Are you going to utilize this deck? Is this a deck that you think is going to do really well going forward in this new game that we just had with the release of this new pack? Of course, with a new pack comes a new meta. So is this deck going to do really well? I like it. I've beaten a lot of very good decks. I'm going to utilize this deck a lot going forward. So I do believe this is going to be a great deck in this new meta. But let me know in the comment section what you think. Are there some cards that you would sub in and out of this deck to make it even better? Let me know in the comments section. Also, let me know if there's a Pokemon that you would like to see a deck built around. Doesn't matter the Pokemon, I will build a deck around that Pokemon. I love creating unique decks. It's fun to have unique decks that do well, that aren't just meta decks. So let me know if there's a Pokemon that you'd love to see a deck built around. I'm absolutely loving this deck. I'm loving Mega Sableye. Like I said, more decks to come with Mega Sableye. And I have other decks with some of the new Pokemon as well as some very old Pokemon in terms of this game. I have that on the docket as well, including Gengar EX. So be on the lookout for that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, peace.